So there are a couple of things that come to mind for me. Number one, I think that Cheryl can't help but take a particular point of view given her identity and background, right? These things hit people hard based on their own identity. And I understand how complex that then becomes when she is at the helm or the major funder, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I get that. And that in and of itself is an issue. By the same token, I also don't believe that anyone needs to agree with her privately or publicly, because everybody's background is important and necessary for them. They will have a different point of view. And what's sitting with me that's I'm having trouble with is I both understand the need to protect self and disengage, but I also know that this is what happens. Someone makes a statement and all of the people who could and should be saying, disappear. And there's only that one perspective left. And we need both perspectives because they're both real from people's different vantage points. So that's what I'm sitting with.
Oh, I mean, we see the anti-racism conference, over years being blown apart by anti-Semitism. It's just like, this is like the ideal way to break up the group. And so you've got terrorized people on both sides. And then you've got some people who have no connection to it looking on like, what? But they're like, these are your key players here. These aren't anybody. And you haven't done the time to figure out why this is not just painful emotions right there, but yeah. So
it's tough. And when I think about just how just painfully brilliant that Filsun is, I hate to lose her voice in this, right? Like, I feel like this is the time for her in a loving way to help people course correct, and also a way to support folks who don't believe in that way. And a way for her to be able to say, Cheryl, you know what? There are other points of view, right? And none of these things just happen out of the blue and in a vacuum and all of that. It's very complex, and it's been complex for millennia, right? Yeah, so.
But 11 years into this project, to see the second time the community be blown apart and painful emotions being at the center of it, which that's what's going to happen. That's how you do it. And then our community decided basically we're going to focus on career and financial well-being. We're not going to touch this other stuff. And I do not feel good about that, because I'm not here to just bring one part of my well-being to the table, but that is what I think 2024 kind of says. Do you want to be smeared? Like, how much of your time do you want to spend crying like about what people will say about you and do to you? And the practical reality of it is that's where there's no hesitation. If someone doesn't feel like they're safe psychologically, done, out.
It's time. It's time to disengage. It's definitely time to take a break. And my question then becomes, are there ways to re-engage after you've refueled and bring a very much needed perspective into an organization that then is I don't think it's ever a good thing for something to be driven by only one perspective. I think that's where we start to fall into issue with almost every subject.
We're getting right to Adam Grant's. There's so much I respect about him, and one of his things is, what would it take for you to change your opinion? And whether you play that thought experiment or not, it's like, it's useful. And so what would have to change? And is I think is a useful thing. And what could Lean In have put in place to have clearly, I think, not being top down and cone of silence, which
Yeah.
yeah, we like having an open discussion about meta. They never did that. The open discussion about what happened in this community around sexual violence, like not having those conversations set us up for this situation. So,
Absolutely.
um,
Absolutely. And, I just, I am pained every day by what's happening. And, but I also know that you cannot completely absolve and you cannot completely villainize one side of things, right? And it again, it's just the reason why more voices, more perspectives need to be there. And what I'm having trouble with is how is it that we've got a war going on thousands of miles away, and you have people who have never been to Israel, who have never been to Palestine, don't know anybody in either of those places, right? Weighing in as if they really understand the issue and they don't, right? And that's creating the noise in which we can elevate one perspective or another. And I think we've got to stop some of the chatter and then really try to figure out what do we do next and what's our place in it from over here,
mhm.
right?
I go back to the book High Conflict, in which you depersonalize the view and the person, and that's what's clearly happening here. And I guess the Baha'i faith does a good job of separating out the person and like policy, the perspective, but nobody else has taken that on. So it's like there are some examples out there of what they could be striving for, of like, let's have a discussion, and it's this policy. It's not about me and my all this that I'm bringing to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and then also the only thing that comes out of that book is without contact, people, or even when people lose their contact with each other, the
Yeah.
Michigan prison workers and the people who suffered mass, anyway, mass shooting in New York, when those people came together, they saw each other's perspective, and then once they lost contact, they went back to like there's just nonsense about each other. Like so,
Yeah. Yeah,
um,
it's not okay. And then my other thoughts go to how do we support Filson during this time?
yes.
And being just fully depleted
Yep. Thank you.
is, not a good place to be. And I've been in that place, and it's tough, and it's tough particularly right now.
Yep.
And we're more divided than I think we ever have been. And so, and how do you show up authentically and unapologetically for who you are and not jeopardize your livelihood? Because that really is what it comes down to. It's easy to say, oh, just, just show up right? But we know what happens, and there's got to be strategies for being able to do both. And then having a community around you that can help support.
However many years into peer counseling and having places where seeing people where people get to, cry and scream and shake, and most people don't have that in mainstream mental health system. So it's like, where does someone get that? I don't know. It feels like something better than therapy. I mean, I hold out like a team of people thinking about you.
Yeah.
Like why anyway, that's what I want for Filson, is a team of people on like who have those skills, and yeah, and who can say and who have enough back information to say, okay, for you, keeping going with the walking, but like maybe adding some company of somebody who you can hit mute and just cry while they're talking at you, or I
Yeah.
don't know what it is, but I have a lot of belief in that emotional release, whether or what it might be, but it might look like prayer for her. It might look like something other than taking things off her plate, just laughing, being silly, comedy
Yeah.
shows, who knows, but I
Yeah.
appreciate you pointing toward what's going to help move away from being depleted.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And how can we make that when she's here in June?
Yes. Yes.
Well,
I
or just the
think,
question of if it was somebody else and they were depleted and they were dealing with this, what would you, knowing what you know about Filson, what would you suggest? And like, do you need the nuclear option like Linda of like put something at stake so you force yourself to do the thing you don't really want to do? Or like, do you
yeah.
have to use some extreme measures to get yourself to,
Yeah.
I don't know,
I don't know.
extreme time? I mean, I tell people like meditation, like it's a different time. So meditation might not look like what it looks like in the past. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I would love to see Filson send that note to Cheryl.
mhm,
Um, it will be interesting to see if Cheryl responds and how she responds.
yep.
Um,
She will respond. There's no doubt.
yeah, and it may be a better response than one thinks, right? If people can keep the option open of care for each other,
Yep.
right? And then if she can't, she can't. And so I don't necessarily have any issue with her leaving Lean
Yep.
In. I
Yep.
mean, in and of itself,
Yep.
it's any kind of platform like any other.
hmm
I just don't want, I think people need that voice and need that perspective. And I don't know that many people who can give it in a way that's authentic and not political. And, I don't know.
hmm Yeah. I think you're pointing back to how amazing she is. And
Yeah,
we
without a
like
doubt.
having that on the record. So yeah.
That's right. That's right. Especially when other people don't have any contact. I mean, like any association, right? She said it herself. Most people don't even know someone who's Muslim, right? So you just believe what you're hearing in the news, and you've got to hear it from somebody else who actually knows and lives it, so that you can say, "Oh, okay, hold on, let me back up for a minute."
I heard the timer right. I'm not. Oh, am
Yes,
I
no,
early?
that was no, no, no. You're
No,
not early. That's
no,
me
no.
running my mouth.
I'm letting Joelle have as much time as she wants.
Joelle's processing out loud. No, it is your time.
It is your time. I get to,
Where'd you go?
I don't know, but I stopped the timer. So she's just
Oh,
giving us a
good.
stretch break.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't know. I couldn't tell if the timer restarted. I was like, did it beep? And then I'm like, oh no, I came back too soon.
We just know you're female because you're like doubting yourself versus like what is going on with Joelle not respecting the boundaries of our time. She's that
I
powerful,
was
has it.
trying to stop.
I the one thing like loving voice. I now know the intention of how the other reason is I'm in such a place of hurt. I did not want to write anything,
Yeah.
but now I have from this conversation, I have the framework of loving voice connection. Um, I will voice what I feel. That's my action to Cheryl directly and leave the door open to saying, yes, I've closed my chapter of being a co-organizer, but I'm always open to conversating and sharing my perspective with you directly. That's going to be my intent. Because the only reason I stayed before is I thought that I could be that voice. I don't feel like there's an opportunity for me. I have not been able to join any of the connections with Nikki. I just didn't feel like it would be genuine. And I just avoidance. And I know when I'm avoiding something and I can't be in a leadership position and not take action. So I didn't feel like I was being genuine to myself. And I'll probably put some of that in my letter to Nikki. Um, and I do know that when I did speak up the last time, I got a warm reception. So I will definitely, and I do expect to have good feedback back, but I think I'll be clear in my letter that I just need to step away. I don't see myself wanting to be part of the lean in, but what it has solidified for me that I could create something similar, but with multiple voices. And I'm not in a place um, with my age of my children, what I'm doing in my career to do something like that. So it's great that I'm on the board and I'm able to shape Rabata. So it reminds me of a lot of the stuff that I wish Lean In would allow the network leaders to be more involved in the shaping of what the community looks like. And I think that's for me, I'll be able to take my energy there. And I think, but I don't like to be part of a homogenous. Like what I liked about Lean In, it wasn't just all Muslims. So I know I need something broader than that, but maybe the time that I'm filling my cup is to be a little bit segregated because I'm not in my workspace. And when you said that point, your livelihood, I can't make a bold stance at Medtronic
That's
because that's what pays for Asia's insulin.
yeah.
And that's what, and I see these young people, maybe not even getting a degree they worked for because they're standing up for what they believe in, and I can't do that.
Yep.
But I can help fund their funds, their bail funds, by the job that I have at Medtronic. And Medtronic is at a place where they're not being as bold as they were around George Floyd. I feel silenced within my organization. And I can't afford to be silenced in my free time.
That's right.
Yeah.
Any funny things that you want recorded?
Huh?
The recording is still on. Anything else you want to say while the recording is on?
No, I just action item is I will write the letters to Nikki, and I probably would take the email I want to write to the advisory board as well, just so that I could thank them and then just share my point of view. And I think that's probably a note to our community. I'll work with you on that, on what that looks like. But I have grown a lot and I want to express that. But, you know, I'm taking that time to be an example to fill my own cup first.
Got it. So you will not write to Cheryl?
I will.
Oh, good.
I just
Okay.
need to,
Nikki and
but I'm
Cheryl
also going to
both.
add, I'm going to do individual. I don't want to send
Yeah.
a like
Oh,
I
no,
want
no,
a
no.
personal message to her directly.
Yep. Absolutely. Great. Thank you.
Yeah.